They say lies unravel like threads from a sweater. Tug one, and before you know it, you're standing in a mess you didn't see coming. But that's not how it happened for me. For me, the unraveling began so quietly, I almost missed it. It started on a Saturday morning, one of those clear, cool days in early October. The kind where the leaves outside look like flames caught mid-flicker, and the air smells like the promise of change. Vanessa stood at the kitchen counter in her usual navy fleece jacket, sipping her coffee and checking her phone. She was always composed in the mornings, more so than me. I was bleary-eyed, clutching a mug I didn't want, watching the steam rise while the kids argued over cereal. "Heading to Mom's in a bit," she said, voice casual, eyes still on her screen. "She wants help with her garage before winter hits." It wasn't unusual. For the last 6 months or so, Vanessa had started going to visit her mother every weekend. "She needs me more lately," she'd said back in April, when these trips became routine. And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Vanessa's mom lived about 90 minutes north, far enough to warrant an overnight stay if she was helping with cleaning or repairs. Vanessa had started packing bags on Friday nights. One duffel, her purse, and a thermos for the road. She left early on Saturdays, came back late Sundays. We'd fall into bed exhausted from tending to the kids, and Monday would sweep us right back into work. Nothing seemed off, not really. But that morning, something changed. She kissed me goodbye like usual, a hand on my cheek, lips soft and warm with coffee. But when she pulled back, I noticed a smear of unfamiliar lipstick on the corner of her thermos. It wasn't hers. Not the neutral shade she always wore. This was plum, a darker, bolder color. Odd, I thought. Maybe she tried something new. Maybe it was her mom's. Maybe it was nothing. But as I watched her drive away, a strange coldness settled in my stomach. A quiet suspicion. I tried to shake it off. That afternoon, while folding laundry, I found a receipt balled up in her jeans pocket. Normally, I'd never snoop. But this time something pushed me. It wasn't from a gas station or grocery store near her mother's town. It was from a boutique wine bar in the city, 70 miles in the opposite direction. 2 glasses of red, a charcuterie board, and a charge just after 8 p.m. last Saturday. I stared at it for a long time. That was the night she'd called and said her mom was sick. She wasn't sure when she'd get home. She didn't come back until the next evening. She said her mom needed help through the night. I sat down on the bed. A knot tightened in my chest. She lied. But about what? That night, I didn't sleep. I listened to the house creak and shift, to the soft breathing of our kids down the hall. I lay next to the woman I thought I knew, trying to understand why her breathing was calm, steady, like nothing was wrong. Over the next week, I played dumb. I watched her pack again the following Friday. She was careful, polished, a little more dressed up than I remembered her being for a garage cleaning session. "Mom's excited to see me," she said. "She wants to make apple crisp like we used to." I nodded, smiled, kissed her. But inside, I was watching everything. The next morning, I followed her. I waited until she was a good 20 minutes ahead, then got in my car and took off. I wasn't sure what I expected. A detour, maybe. A stop at a friend's. But what I saw, it was worse. She didn't drive north. She drove downtown, parked in front of a small apartment building with ivy curling up its brick sides. I stayed 2 blocks back, parked at a bakery, and pretended to scroll through my phone. She stepped out of the car, wearing heels. I hadn't seen her wear heels in months. And then she smiled. A man met her at the door. Tall, well-dressed, younger than me by a few years. He kissed her like they belonged to each other. It wasn't a peck. It was slow, intimate. She looked radiant. Different. Her body language, loose, warm. It wasn't the Vanessa who kissed me like a habit every morning. This woman laughed into his shoulder. She looked in love. I drove away, numb. Not angry. Not yet. Just gutted. That night, I told her I was taking the kids to visit my sister next weekend, alone. She barely looked up from her phone. "Okay, I might stay an extra day at Mom's anyway." "Take all the time you need," I said. I don't think she heard me. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything I could. I followed her again, took photos, tracked the license plate of the man's car, bought a second phone to record their conversations from a distance when I could. I needed confirmation, not because I didn't believe what I'd seen, but because I needed the betrayal in high definition. I needed it to feel as real on paper as it did in my bones. The man's name was Evan. He was a paramedic, lived alone. No wife. No kids. No complications. Vanessa had told him she was separated, that we lived in the same house for the kids' sake, but were emotionally done. I saw it all in the messages I cloned from her phone. She told him she loved him, that he made her feel alive again, that he was her escape from the cage she'd been stuck in. That cage was our marriage. I never considered myself perfect. I worked too much. I wasn't great with dates or gifts or noticing her haircut. But I loved her. I never strayed. I never even looked elsewhere. And now I was watching our history unravel in text messages typed at midnight while I slept beside her. I started to change. Quietly. Methodically. I planned my weekends alone with the kids. I told her I needed space. She welcomed it. Probably thought it made it easier for her to sneak away. I didn't ask questions. Didn't pry. Because I was preparing. For something much, much bigger than a confrontation. I wanted a reckoning. Not a screaming match. Not a sobbing why. I wanted to make her feel what I felt. But worse. I wanted to watch her world collapse like she'd collapsed mine. And I was almost ready. I didn't speak of it. Not to anyone. Not to friends. Not even to my brother, who would have probably told me to confront her and burn it all down. I wasn't ready for that. I needed precision. I kept playing the part of the clueless husband. Polite. Calm. Distracted by work and parenting. I cooked dinners, folded laundry, kissed her cheek when she walked in late on Sundays. Always just a little too tired from helping her mom. Vanessa didn't suspect a thing. Not even when I started working from home more often, claiming I was burned out from the office. She welcomed the shift. Less interaction with me meant more space for her fantasy world. I installed a second set of hidden cameras. The first batch had caught enough. Her slipping makeup into a travel pouch, changing outfits before leaving. But I wanted footage from outside. I fixed a camera inside our garage, one angled toward the street, catching every departure and arrival. By the third weekend of surveillance, I had hours of video, all time-stamped. Vanessa, dressed to kill, walking out at 6:52 a.m. Saturday. Vanessa, returning at 9:14 p.m. Sunday. Smiling. Satisfied. I traced her route again, from our quiet suburban street to Evan's apartment. I watched from a parked car, shades on, camera steady in my hand. She entered with her duffel. She left in the same clothes she wore the morning before. She never went near her mother's house. I looked up her mom's phone number in my contact list and debated calling her, asking about these weekend visits. But something told me it wouldn't help. Either her mother was part of the cover-up, or Vanessa had lied to her, too. I needed more. The messages between her and Evan were saccharine and infuriating. They spoke in metaphors. Can't wait to feel the fire again, she'd written. He replied, every second away is a lifetime. She saved him in her phone as EM, just initials. Careful, quiet. She'd even hidden the second phone in her purse again after our daughter nearly found it in the vent. I waited for the DNA results to arrive. They came on a Thursday. A small package, plain envelope. I took it into my home office and sat in the silence. My hands trembled as I opened it. The lab report was straightforward, no frills. And in those first few lines, my heart stopped. Probability of paternity, 99%. Conclusion, James is the biological child of the alleged father. I exhaled, a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for weeks. Then the next page. Probability of paternity, 0%. Conclusion, Sonia is not the biological child of the alleged father. My hand crumpled the edge of the paper before I even realized I was doing it. The room tilted slightly. I had to sit down. My daughter, my little girl with the soft laugh and sticky fingers, who clung to me during storms and called me daddy like it was the only word she knew, wasn't mine. It didn't make me love her less. But it changed everything. Vanessa had cheated years ago. Before Evan. Before these weekend getaways. This wasn't new. It was long-standing. Habitual. She built a life on lies, and I had lived in it like a fool. The next day, I packed the kids' bags and dropped them off at my sister's house for a special sleepover weekend. Vanessa was delighted when I told her. She'd have her weekend, with Mom, completely to herself. She kissed me goodbye like always. You're amazing, she said, brushing her hand across my chest. I don't say it enough. I smiled. We all need a little space sometimes, right? She laughed. Exactly. The moment she left, I began the final phase. First, I compiled everything. The messages, the photos, the camera footage, the DNA results. I scanned them all into a folder on a new flash drive. Then I printed copies, dozens, and placed them in sealed envelopes. One for her parents, one for mine, one for the school PTA she volunteered with, one for her boss. I didn't intend to send them just yet, but I wanted her to see how far I could take it. By midday Saturday, I drove downtown to Evan's apartment, parked across the street. I waited. At 2:17 p.m., I saw them leave the building together. Her hand was looped around his arm. She looked younger, lighter. They walked to a cafe nearby. I followed on foot, stayed outside, snapped more photos. Inside the cafe, they sat close. Her hand rested on his thigh. She leaned in to kiss him before their drinks even arrived. That's when it happened. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small black box. My heart slammed against my chest. He opened it. A ring. From across the window, I saw her eyes widen, her smile bloom like spring. She covered her mouth with both hands. She was saying yes. To a proposal. To a man who thought she was separated. She was planning to marry him. I turned around and walked back to the car. My pulse hammered in my ears. The world buzzed. She wasn't just cheating. She was building a second life. A parallel one. Another man. Another future. A version of herself where I didn't exist. I didn't drive home right away. I went to a friend's law office, the same friend who'd helped me draft our wills a few years ago. I asked him to pull the prenup from his files. Vanessa and I had signed it the year we got married. Her father insisted, back when I was just a mid-level manager. It protected me more than her. I wanted to see if it still held. It did. Infidelity nullified any claim to shared property or spousal support. I could strip everything. And now I would. But not yet. I needed her to feel safe one more time. To believe I was still the man asleep at the wheel. I needed her to feel bold enough to take the next step. I drove home and waited for her return. Sunday evening. Same time. Same routine. She walked in with her bag, cheeks rosy from the weekend. "How's your mom?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "She's doing better," she said, tossing her coat on the hook. "Tired, but stubborn as ever." I nodded. "That's good." She kissed me softly, fingers grazing my chin. "You're the best," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Neither do I thought. Because soon, you'll find out exactly what it's like without me. The days that followed were unervingly calm. Vanessa hummed while making coffee, scrolled her phone while folding laundry, and kissed me goodnight like nothing had shifted beneath the floor of our marriage. But I couldn't sleep beside her anymore without feeling like I was lying to myself. Every little thing she did had a weight now. Every smile, every casual "love you" was wrapped in fiction. And I had the receipts to prove it, literally. That engagement ring she'd accepted? She didn't even hide it. On Wednesday night, while she showered, I checked her duffel bag. Tucked in a sock was the black velvet box, still holding the diamond that would become her next chapter. A chapter she intended to start while still married to me. And the most infuriating part? She still wore our wedding band during the week. A costume. A prop. Just part of her weekday character. Devoted wife. Attentive mother. Reliable coworker. I used to admire her multitasking. Now I wondered how many lives she'd been living all along. I started timing her more precisely. Her departures, her arrivals, how long she stayed in the garage before walking into the house. I even recorded our conversations, not for legal leverage, but to study the tone in her voice. I wanted to hear how effortlessly she lied. She was a master of half-truths. "Mom says we should all do a family dinner soon," she said Thursday night while chopping onions. "The kids miss her." "Do they?" I asked, watching the knife flash under her hand. "Yeah, James keeps asking when we're going to visit Nana's again. Maybe next weekend?" She smiled. "You can come too if you want." That was the first time she'd invited me. After 6 months of weekend visits, suddenly she was cracking the door open. It rattled me. Did she suspect something? Or was Evan pressuring her to prove the lie? I played it cool. Shrugged. "We'll see. I've got a lot going on at work." She nodded, turning back to the stove. "Right. I figured." That weekend, I let her leave first. Then, 20 minutes later, I followed, again, with a camera. Same route. Same building. Same man. But this time, I didn't just sit in the car. I walked right up to the building's front door after they'd gone inside. I used the nameplate directory to find Evan's apartment number. His last name was Holtz. Then I went back to my car and wrote it down on a list that was growing longer by the day. Addresses, license plates, time logs, itemized receipts, and now the name of the man who was engaged to my wife. That night, I booked a hotel room under a fake name near their building. I wasn't going to spy. I wasn't going to follow them. I just wanted to feel what it was like to be out of the lie for a moment. In the silence of that hotel room, I stared at the ceiling and imagined different futures. One where I confronted her in public, dramatic, loud, final. One where I mailed the evidence to everyone she loved. One where I let it all burn down without warning, leaving her to dig through the ashes alone. But none of those felt right. Not yet. By Sunday afternoon, I was back home. Vanessa arrived after dark. I watched her carry the duffel upstairs, hair windblown, cheeks flushed. I didn't speak. Instead, I prepared the next phase. The following week, I made a phone call. Evan Holtz. I asked, voice calm and clear. Yes. I'm calling about Vanessa. She's my wife. The silence on the line was like stepping off a cliff. Then a laugh, nervous, defensive. I think you have the wrong. No, I don't, I cut in. You've been seeing her for 6 months. I know about the engagement. I know everything. Click. He hung up. I let him sit with that for a few hours. Then I sent him the photos. Vanessa in his arms. Vanessa kissing him outside the cafe. Vanessa pulling off her wedding ring in his bathroom. No caption. No explanation. Just truth. That night, Vanessa was quiet at dinner. Distracted. Her phone buzzed twice. She didn't answer. Everything okay? I asked casually. Yeah, just work stuff, she muttered. I could see the panic beginning to bloom behind her eyes. Later, after the kids were asleep, I watched her pace in the bedroom, phone pressed to her ear, face tight. No, I can't. Not tonight, she whispered. I don't know. Just don't do anything stupid, okay? She turned when she saw me enter the room. Who was that? I asked, tilting my head. She forced a smile. Just my mom. She's not feeling well. Her mother. Of course. I nodded. I hope she's okay. Yeah, me too. She turned away quickly. That night, she didn't sleep. I could feel her body shift restlessly beside me, her breathing uneven. In the morning, her duffel bag stayed in the closet. No packing. No call to check in on her mother. She spent Saturday in the house, jittery, overly affectionate with the kids. I waited. On Sunday morning, she sat down at the kitchen table while I was reading the paper. Her hands were clenched in her lap. I need to tell you something, she said, not meeting my eyes. Okay, I said, folding the paper slowly. She hesitated. I've been confused. About things. About us. And I've been talking to someone. A friend. I wanted to tell you earlier, but I didn't know how. A friend. I looked at her like she'd just spoken in another language. So, this was the story she'd settled on. Okay, I repeated. She seemed thrown off by my lack of reaction. I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. I don't know what I want yet. I just know I haven't been happy. You've seemed happy. Her voice dropped. That was a mask. And the kids? They're just props in your play? Her face twisted. That's not fair. Neither is lying every weekend for half a year. She froze. And I realized she didn't know how much I knew. Not yet. She thought she was stepping ahead of the fallout, controlling the narrative. I stood slowly, walked to my office, came back with a manila envelope. I dropped it in front of her like a stone. Here's what I know, I said. Every lie, every weekend, every message. She opened it. The color drained from her face as she sifted through the contents. Photos, printed texts, a copy of the DNA report. Her breath caught when she reached the engagement photo I'd taken from across the cafe window. She started, eyes glassy. I'm not finished, I said. She looked up. I know who he is. I've spoken to him. I know what you told him. I know about the proposal. And I know you said we were separated. Tears welled, but I felt nothing. I didn't. It wasn't supposed to go that far, she whispered. But it did. She shook her head slowly. I was going to end it. I was trying to. You were trying to have both. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I leaned down. I'm giving you 48 hours, I said. To leave. Quietly. No drama. You pack. You go. You tell the kids whatever story you want, but you leave me out of it. And if I don't, she asked, voice trembling, then the next envelope goes to your parents. Then to your job. Then to the school board. Then to Evan's family. With names, dates, receipts. And they'll all know exactly who you are. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. Vanessa stared at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Good. She wasn't supposed to. She didn't leave. Not after 48 hours. Not after 72. She stayed. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought shame would push her out the door. Or guilt. Or fear. But it turns out Vanessa was made of steel when it came to preserving her delusions. Her bag stayed unpacked. Her toothbrush still stood upright beside mine in the bathroom. Her shoes still littered the foyer like nothing had happened. She tiptoed around the house like a ghost, barely speaking. I didn't chase her. I didn't confront her again. I simply watched. Every now and then, I'd catch her staring at me. Not with anger, not even with sorrow. With confusion. Like she was still trying to figure out who I was now that I wasn't her passive, pliable husband. She didn't know that man had died the day I read the DNA report. That week, I started taking meetings with attorneys. I wasn't rushing into court. Not yet. I was preparing for the long game. The kind that ends in quiet devastation. Vanessa still went to work. Still picked up the kids. Still smiled around the neighbors. But something in her was unraveling. Her hair started looking less done. Her phone buzzed less. The second phone, she destroyed it. I watched her smash it with a hammer in the garage and dump it in the trash bin without a word. I think Evan stopped calling. I think he saw the truth the same way I had. One morning, over coffee, I handed her a typed document, neatly formatted. Her name printed in bold at the top. She read the headline, Property Separation Agreement, Preliminary Draft, and let out a shaky breath. "You're serious?" she said. I looked at her flatly. "You didn't think I was bluffing, did you?" I thought maybe we could talk." "Talk." "Vanessa, the time for talking passed 6 months ago. I asked you every Sunday night how your mom was doing, and you lied to my face." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't soften. I wasn't here for her pain anymore. She reached across the table. "Please. I made a mistake." I stared at her hand. I remembered that same hand gripping Evan's arm in the parking lot. I remembered it typing messages to him, telling him she loved him. I didn't move. She pulled her hand back slowly. "We can go to counseling," she said quietly. "We can fix this." "I don't want to fix this," I replied. "I want you gone." She bit her lip. "What about the kids? What about them? Do you still want custody?" I didn't answer immediately. Of course I wanted them. I loved them more than life. But I wasn't going to let her know how much. Not yet. "I want what's best for them," I said finally. "And living in a house where their mother sneaks around behind their father's back isn't it?" She flinched. I stood up. "You have until the end of the week." "That's generous." She didn't argue this time. That night, I watched her cry in the hallway after putting the kids to bed. Her back was against the wall, knees drawn up, sobs quiet but broken. I didn't comfort her. She had made her choices. Friday came, and the house was quiet. Tense. I walked in from work to find her standing in the living room, a small suitcase by her feet. She looked at me like she was waiting for permission to speak. "I'm going to stay at Rachel's for a while," she said. I nodded. "Okay." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The door clicked behind her 5 minutes later. She was gone. I should have felt something. Relief, triumph, grief. Instead, I felt nothing. A dull, echoing nothing. The silence of the house was deafening. Even with the kids' chatter in the background, something about it felt hollow. Like I'd won a war, but lost a world. That weekend, I did something I hadn't done in months. I slept. Not just a nap on the couch or a restless doze with one eye open. I slept a deep, dreamless sleep that lasted nearly 10 hours. When I woke, the sun was already high, the kids were playing, and I felt functional again. Maybe even human. I started cleaning. Not just tidying up. I tore the place apart. Every drawer, every closet, every cabinet Vanessa had touched. I purged it all. Notes, photos, gifts, that sweater she loved, all gone. I found old letters in her desk drawer. Love notes, dated back years. Some from me. Some I didn't recognize. I burned them in the fireplace one by one, watching the paper curl into ash. It was Sunday night when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Vanessa on the porch. No suitcase. Just her. Pale. Eyes ringed with exhaustion. "I know I said I'd stay at Rachel's," she said. "But I wanted to talk. Just talk." I said nothing. She looked past me, into the house. "The kids okay?" "They're fine." She nodded. Her lip trembled. "I went to Evans," she whispered. "He didn't let me in. That surprised me. He told me I disgusted him," she said, voice cracking. "Said I lied to him just like I lied to you. He threw the ring at me." She opened her hand. The diamond ring sat there, glittering under the porch light. I ruined everything, she said. I didn't respond. I thought I was escaping something, she went on. I thought love was supposed to be dramatic and exciting and, God, I don't even know. You thought wrong, I said quietly. She nodded. I did. Why are you here, Vanessa? Her eyes met mine. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I leaned against the doorway. I'm not the man I was 6 months ago, I said. That man would have begged you to come back. He would have blamed himself, asked what he did wrong. She wiped a tear away. I know. I don't miss him. A silence fell between us. She looked down. I'll go. Wait. She turned. I stepped inside, returned a moment later with a second manila envelope. What's this? She asked. The final version. She took it wordlessly. I'll have the lawyer call you in the morning. And just like that, she walked away. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Is this Mr. Walker? A woman's voice asked. Yes. I'm calling from Mason Elementary. I'm afraid we've had a situation with Sonia. My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? She said something in class today. Something troubling. What did she say? The woman hesitated. She told her teacher that her mommy had 2 husbands. One at home, and one in a building with red flowers. My heart stopped. She said what? We're not accusing anyone of anything, sir, she added quickly. But children often repeat things they hear at home, and we're required to report anything that could imply instability. My jaw clenched. Thank you for calling, I said, every word like stone. I hung up, and in that moment I realized Vanessa's lies weren't done unraveling yet. Not even close. After I hung up the phone with the school, I sat perfectly still. The air in the house felt different. Thicker, like I was wading through fog. Sonia's words echoed in my head. My mommy has 2 husbands. I stared at the floor, numb. For a long time, I didn't move. I'd thought the worst was behind me. I thought I'd already seen the truth, in the photos, the messages, the ring. I thought exposing Vanessa, stripping her down to her lies, would be enough. But kids don't lie like adults do. They don't know how. And they don't create stories out of thin air unless someone has planted the seeds. So when my 5-year-old daughter told her teacher about a second husband, it meant that Vanessa hadn't just been dishonest, she'd been reckless. Careless enough for our child to witness something. Something that left an impression. I called my lawyer immediately. I want full custody, I told him. He didn't even hesitate. We'll file today. The custody battle began like a slow burn. Vanessa didn't take it well. She tried to spin the narrative, make it about my emotional detachment and her need for fulfillment, but she didn't know what I had waiting in the wings. I didn't go scorched earth immediately. I was methodical, just like she had been, or thought she had been. We met with mediators. We filled out paperwork. I smiled politely in front of her lawyer. Let them think I was soft. Let her feel safe again. Then, right before our first formal custody hearing, I released the footage. Not to the court. Not yet. To her parents. Her boss. Her social circle. Evan's parents. The PDA group chat. All of them received the truth. Not just her betrayal, but her lies. The split existence she'd been living. The photos, the time logs, the ring. And the paternity test. Yes, that too. Because Vanessa wasn't just unfaithful. She had built a life on a false foundation. One that I'd stood on, unknowingly, for years. Her parents were the first to call. Her mother sobbed. Her father didn't speak, just hung up after I confirmed it all. Her employer asked her to take an indefinite leave. The school requested a new emergency contact for our children. Evan. He vanished. He never even responded to the final message I sent him. You deserve each other. By the time we reached court, Vanessa was a shadow of herself. Her lawyer tried to argue instability on my part, surveillance, secret recordings, emotional coldness. But I handed over the files, all of it, with timestamps, locations, corroborated messages, and the paternity test sealed with a lab certification. The judge barely took an hour to decide. Full physical custody to me. Vanessa would get supervised visitation. No overnights. When the decision was read aloud, she didn't cry. She just stopped moving, like someone had unplugged her. Later, outside the courtroom, she approached me. She didn't look angry anymore. Just tired. Hollow. I never meant for this to happen, she said. You mean getting caught? She shook her head. No. All of it. I just wanted to feel something. I got lost in it. And you took us all down with you. I didn't mean to ruin your life. You didn't, I said. You just gave me the chance to rebuild it. She opened her mouth, maybe to ask for forgiveness. But I turned and walked away. Over the next few months, life slowly returned to something resembling normal. I focused on James and Sonia. I explained what I could, in words they'd understand. I didn't poison them against her. I let her actions speak for themselves. But they saw enough, heard enough. Children aren't stupid. Vanessa showed up for a few visitations, but eventually, she stopped coming. The last I heard, she'd moved to another city, started working for a small firm, and was living in a studio apartment. Evan never returned her calls. The ring was never pawned. She still wears it, according to someone who saw her at a grocery store. I think she wears it as a kind of punishment. As for Sonia, well, she's my daughter. Biology has nothing to do with that. I'm the one who rocked her to sleep, who held her hand through her first doctor's appointment, who stayed up all night when she had the flu. I'll never tell her the truth. Not unless I absolutely have to. Because she deserves to feel loved, not like a mistake from a shattered marriage. A year after the divorce was finalized, I stood in the backyard watching James kick a soccer ball across the grass. Sonia sat in the shade, scribbling in chalk. The sun was warm. The breeze smelled like summer. For the first time in a long time, I felt peace. Not happiness, not quite, but clarity. Vanessa's lie didn't destroy me. It revealed me. Revealed the man I was when everything was stripped away, the father I could be, the strength I didn't know I had. People ask me sometimes if I've forgiven her. And I say this, I don't need to. She lives with the consequences of her choices. That's her sentence. Mine. I get to live honestly. And in the end, I won. Not with revenge, but with truth.